Hello. I was going on a run, and it's been a while since I run. And I was just kind of digging through my thoughts, and I figured why not upload them to a platform so that I can watch myself over and then watch other people watch me. You know, the pinnacle of narcissism in the 21st century, of course. So I just wanted to put my thoughts out here. I'll get into it in a sec, but for context, kind of going through a quarter life crisis, and I figured it'd be interesting to get some advice from the internet at large, writ large. See if the masses have any opinions that differ from the ones that I have and that I've collected from people around me. Not saying that I don't respect the voices and thoughts around me. It's just they're obviously going to be similar to what I think, and obviously that means they're going to be very similar to what I think and conclude, and pretty much echo chamber of opinions. So I figured why not, and I haven't posted in a while. Okay, sorry, let's get into it. Basically, my thought is I've been spending so much time trying to figure out what exactly it is I want with my life, and it's a hard question to examine if you've never actually lived. And it's kind of recursive in that if you live, do something, and figure out you don't actually like it, if you had a chance to start over, that would probably just end up with a different conclusion. And if we took that exercise a couple times, if we for example, let's pick a sport for high school or whatever, there's going to be a point where I would end up in kind of the same loop where if I didn't like volleyball, I'd probably end up doing basketball. If I didn't like basketball, I'd probably end up doing soccer then volleyball, and then, we aren't infinite minds the way AI is, and so we're going to be in this loop where we have a finite amount of memory and attention span that, we're destined to make the same mistakes the same way every generation does, even though every generation tries to record their mistakes for the future one. It gets to a point where there's just not enough bandwidth to absorb and know all that information. Maybe AI can, who knows, in the future. So I'm just thinking, career-wise, what do I want to do? Am I losing some motivation because it was originally extrinsically sourced, from family, from friends, from expectations I had of myself before? Do I want something else because, now there's a new shiny thing, a new, thing that promises greener pastures, for example. And the flip side of the argument is not the other extreme, positive, negative. It's more just the neutrality of it all, which is what I have right now is great, and I should, be appreciative of it. Which then kind of leads to the question of, am I just being complacent? Am I finding an excuse to just sit where I am, be content, not chase for anything? So there's these, I guess, differing forces, you could say. One is the strong force, that pulls people in. This is a physics thing. It's like gravity, basically. I also might be speaking out of my ass, so. Strong force where you're stuck in and you're kind of static. You're like a person on a planet, right? You can't just escape orbit without a lot of force. And then the other side is the more repulsive force of weak force. If you ever had magnets, they they don't attract. They in fact do the opposite. They go further apart. And so there's these two, I guess, philosophies of life, right? From this kind of dichotomy that I've structured, where it's like, do I want something different, something more, something less, or do I just stay the same and just keep going forward? And, I think I've been trying to tie this to like Taoism and, oh damn, my forehead's huge. Taoism and just like the idea that, we're all flowing on a river, some Buddhist thought of just like, there's no idea that you're doing anything, things are just happening, right? Like if you have a compulsion to gamble, you will gamble. And if you don't, if you're able to actually restrain yourself from gambling, you'll just do it in some other way. You're gonna scratch your itch. You're gonna get your vice. But maybe because I'm Chinese, but I definitely lean towards the Taoist idea more, where we're all in a river and we're flowing. And it's slightly, at times it's a good idea to backpedal, to row backwards, maybe change path, maybe recount something. But at the end of the day, you're going downstream. You can't really stop it in the sense that time is flowing, right? And so to fight against it is, potentially meaningful, but also in most cases a waste. We could argue that, but if we just take that as a general, axiom of life, of like moving forward, as a minimum. I'm running, so like moving forward. But I guess to take that previous dichotomy with this Taoist kind of river flowing is like, if I'm flowing down river and I see a tributary or some sort of delta where there's path splitting, right? At the end of the day, as a human being, as a potentially sentient conscious thing, what I have in choice is not to go forward and evolve or, live, but it's to pick a direction. And I think that's how I've lived life and how I've, done things, has generally been to pick a direction. And I think the benefits of that have been building, a strong understanding and foundation of where I am and where to move from there, as opposed to, completely refresh starting over. Maybe that's what I need. But I've found that fulfilling, I guess, to, in a way, like leave breadcrumbs as a trail around me, leave footprints where I walk, have a trail, have a path that I can maybe recount and understand, and not just have these bouncing pogo jumps or like teleportations, but it's like a path that makes sense, maybe in a way that a story evolves. What are we at? 8 minutes. Okay, cool. So I guess that's how I frame it. So which direction do I want to go? Do I want to prioritize certain things in my life? Do I want to achieve greatness in certain areas? And that, by the nature of time moving, the river flowing, limited resources, whatever you want to add in of restrictions, we cannot have everything. And I'm starting to, really understand that. And so there's going to be sacrifice and opportunity costs. Shout out Micro 101, Econ. And so, I think the paths that I've walked have been quite calculated. What's optimal, what's, solving for whatever it is, right? Like clout, respect from others, having my parents be proud, things going well. It's like, if I solve for something, sure, I can achieve a level of success in that one area. And maybe this is this recent trend where people on YouTube are focusing on maxing their intuition, let's say, it's a word. It's not really friendly maxing, where you kind of just follow your instinct and let it take you wherever and whatever happens. For me, that hasn't necessarily been in the same way it's been portrayed. I don't really like to let my senses dictate the direction that I'm flowing on the river. You know, I don't like to say, oh, I'm hungry, let me let that dictate everything, where I live. You know, I mean, you know, there's like a bunch of snowball effects if you let a single sense over affect. And maybe I've overemphasized the logic and the thinking to say, you know, I don't need to eat because that'll detract from my ability to finish this book or practice piano or, you know, do work, whatever. And maybe I need to tap back into that, I think. But I think generally, my lifestyle has been to put my senses second in the back seat. And I think this idea that has been beat to death in antiquity around feeling and instinct, not, you know, primal, but like a human instinct, a drive, a passion, I guess some people call it, a purpose, I think is kind of like the most evolved ultimate form of whatever this concept is, you know, besides solving for something, but actually having a compass, I guess, you know. I think that has manifested in my life in a certain way, where the people I connect with and the people that I talk to, I feel like kind of follow that string of entanglement. It's not so much the other things. At least the most meaningful relationships, I feel like, in my life are driven and kind of flow along this string of whatever that concept is. So I think I'm gonna adopt some of that bad word dash maxing, but in my own way of doing what I feel is right and doing what I think has that purpose and meaning. You know, from a very simple perspective, it's like if I'm just coming home and I'm done work, like that could just be me brain rotting, eating a bag of chips, you know, or like in a past life, you know, going to the bars and going to the clubs and talking to people, you know, to catch a vibe or whatever. But I think that's really the only direction that kind of exists at this point. That's, at least for me, like it like resonates, you know, in totality of everything on the day-to-day. You know, solving for one thing leaves a lot of variables that are kind of left unoptimized, right? Whenever you have like a model, or like if you're playing a sport, if you're trying to accomplish only one thing, I want to get 30 blocks in my next basketball game, like you're obviously going to suffer in all these other areas. And kind of the truly most optimizing strategy is just to feel it out, you know, have that almost unconscious, like intentionally unconscious. I think that's something that I'm trying to figure out, is like, how do I do it so I'm not consciously trying to like back solve, try to reverse engineer what it is I'm actually solving for, because I think intrinsically it's something that cannot be perceived by a person for themselves, right? Like, it's almost like a curse. Like, to understand yourself means you have stopped understanding yourself, in a way, right? It kind of goes to that previous point of like, when you have these second chances and you try things again, you're gonna forget. And even if you're trying to optimize, it'll always never work. And it'll only work if you're not like deliberately trying to optimize and solve and calculate and plan. So yeah, I think that's kind of the end of this little rant. Running on the Upper West Side. It's been a pretty quiet, nice run Friday night. Yeah, I guess like my going forward is just trying to get that balance of knowing that what I want is not something I can know. And that what I can know is how to get that thing that I don't know how to get. Or sorry. What I want, I know how to get what I want, but I don't know what it is I want. I think that is exactly the paradoxical, beautiful conclusion of this little video diary entry. I think that's what it is. Yeah. I don't know if anybody wants this. Maybe like 10 people. If you're watching this, drop a like and comment. Yeah, I think that helped for me. I'm gonna get back on this run. I got a race Sunday, 4 miles. So I gotta prep for that. I've been a little bit of a couch potato or a work chair potato. So gotta get that going. It's nice. Weather's getting better. Summer's coming. New York is starting to stench up again. You already know how it is. Rats are coming out. Cockroaches coming to play. Boba Wednesdays are gonna be in. At least I'm gonna try. Yeah, I guess with everything going on, it's only really one way to live, you know? Future ain't promised. Light at the end of the tunnel. Joke's on you, that light is your headgear, and you're running forward, ever forward.